Gertrude Riding were dealing with the dozens of wounded now flooding in. The hospital was one of the few near the docks still open. For those inside, the bombs sounded far too close for comfort.
The wards at Mill Road Hospital would have been full to capacity. There would have been many casualties from the previous 2 nights' raids. The 2 most senior members of staff in charge of running the hospital, matron Gertrude Riding and the hospital superintendent, Dr. Leonard Findlay, were now trying to work out a better plan for dealing with the incoming injured.
Charles Findlay is Dr. Findlay's son.
I would describe my father as a totally devoted physician. He was also a perfectionist.
Dr. Findlay had been in charge of preparing the hospital for war. He knew just how vulnerable it was. He'd already witnessed for himself the destructive power of aerial bombardment.
In the previous November, he was very much involved in administering to the injured and trapped in an incident where a building collapsed onto an air raid shelter and about 170 people were trapped inside that shelter. Many of them died very horribly, and he had to crawl through the wreckage administering morphia to people, which is all he said he could do that time.
Dr. Findlay worried about his hospital's proximity to the docks. Other nearby hospitals had closed their doors, but Mill Road had no choice but to stay open.
Mill Road had a role as a wartime casualty hospital, but it was still functioning as a normal hospital. There was outpatients, a maternity wing, a normal general hospital, but then it also had the added pressure of having to deal with the casualties during the bombing raids.
The maternity ward was a particular headache. There were concerns for the women's safety, but heavily pregnant women presented a very specific set of problems.
Earlier that night, it had been decided to move patients to the basement, but some pregnant women and mothers with babies couldn't make it down the stairs. The only protection offered to them had been to move their beds away from the walls.
Now, with bombs falling, Dr. Findlay and Matron Riding focused on the stream of injured people who were arriving at the hospital.
My father, the matron, and my father's deputy were working in the outpatients department dealing with new casualties. At that stage, it would have been running reasonably smoothly.
As they were busy processing the influx of casualties, Mill Road was hit. Dr. Findlay and Matron Riding were standing in the centre of the hospital, right in the heart of the explosion.
The hospital was struck by a parachute mine. It was a direct hit. The explosion ripped through the wards, operating theatres and surrounding buildings.
Moments after the bomb hit Mill Road, the planes were flying over Margaret Johnson's home in Wycombe Street.